All right. So thanks. All right. So yeah, I guess thanks everyone for joining. So right now will be our second hour, which is also the coaching call, okay, for this week. And basically, this will be our, I think our last, well, actually not really the last one because after the demo day, we will have a review week. Okay, that will be the truly last one. But this will actually be the last week in terms of the YC materials. Okay, the Y Combinator stuff. So yeah, so do enjoy, okay? And actually this week's topic is about the founder stories. Okay, this is actually one of my, I think, favorite parts because, oftentimes I think we are, oftentimes we human beings, we learn best by stories and examples, right? If you really think about our history, our ancestors, what we really enjoy are always the most memorable things are always the stories. Okay, it's not the knowledge, not the facts, it's the stories, right? Stories is how we kind of pass our culture and heritage, right? I think Rochelle and and I we were talking about. I think there's a major Indian festival on Friday, right? Coming in a couple of days, and I think that's also a way, right? By keeping traditions, telling stories, that's actually how we keep our culture alive, right? All right, so I think for this week, there are actually three stories regarding entrepreneurship or founders. This is actually, the first is actually Facebook story from Mark Zuckerberg. So YC's president back then, actually, he's the current CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman. He used to be the YC, president. Okay, so he actually did this interview. I would definitely recommend you watch the original interview if you can. Okay, you know, um, so he was interviewing Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook, and I think I'm just going to share some key highlights. Mark was actually he saw there was a gap, right? A problem that people were facing. He did not actually wanted to start a company. Okay, he didn't really start by saying, I want to build a startup, I want to start a company. In fact, he thinks that, there are large companies like Yahoo, they will probably build something, like a social network or something that became Facebook, right? He thought that was probably the large companies, thing, not him. Okay, so, but yet he was just he's really interested into human nature and into how people interact, right? I think in college years he studied Greek mythology, and he's always been very interested at human emotions and just how people deal with each other. So um, he was actually developing lots of different little apps, actually 12 of them before Facebook. Okay. He did one, I don't know if you know, it's called Hot or Not. It's actually showing up two photos, okay, of, just random photos. He got it from maybe some system, people's photos. And then you can choose whether, this is better looking than the other one. Okay, it's called Hot or Not. And that became like very popular among the students. So he did that. But he also was noticing that, there's a disconnect between what the students want or what he wanted versus what was available, right? Because there was already internet, people are really using it and for information. But to look for people, it was still kind of difficult. Okay, not easy to actually keep track of other people or find other people. So he wanted to build a tool that actually solved that. That actually became Facebook. Okay. And he talks about, how to allow things appear naturally through evolution. And Okay, so one example was the, news feed feature, which is, after Facebook rolled out. If you really look at Facebook, I think we have an engineer here, Vihas, right? If you were to replicate Facebook main features, I'm pretty sure you can do that maybe in a week or two, right? Maybe even less, maybe a few days, right? Okay, because if you look at Facebook fundamentally,
Yes, sir.
it's really right. I mean, for example, if you can just build a site, right? Allow people to create profiles, right? And then maybe share a message about what they're doing, right? And then go to check other people, other friends, and they can add friends and see, friends' profile, right? That site, I think you can probably do that in a week or two, or even less, right? Vihas, do you agree? Yeah.
Yes, sorry,
Do,
sir.
do,
There is a connection problem from my side.
okay, okay. Do you think you can maybe build that site very quickly? If just those basic function. Okay. Anyway, yeah. My point being, it's actually not hard to replicate the most essential basic features, okay, of let's say even Facebook, right? But then obviously what made it, okay, what he later observed that, people actually after they log into Facebook, they would go to their friends' accounts and look at what they're doing, look at all their updates. Okay, they would just go to each one of their friends and then check their updates. So, you just realize why not put all of my friends' updates into like a single, information dashboard, right? Kind of like just showing them. So after I log in, I get my friends' update all at once. Okay, so that actually becomes newsfeed. And that's actually one of the earliest emerged feature of Facebook. Okay, so I think what the lesson tells us that you want to kind of observe people's behavior, how they are using things, and how you can actually help them to enhance, their productivity, solve their problem, or whatever, right? This actually would be a good starting point to build your product, okay, to create your service offering, to actually solve people's problem, and that creates value. Okay, so this is kind of the key. And from Mark's perspective, the biggest risk, a lot of people think that entrepreneurship is risky, okay, or maybe make bold moves, make new things, right? Try new things. It's risky, it's dangerous because, you could be, losing things. You could be basically you probably you might quote unquote fail in your attempt, right? But Mark mentioned the biggest risk is actually not taking risk. Okay. And the reason is simple. Because if you don't try new things, you will never be able to grow and learn, right? And maybe to have a breakthrough. If you just keep the same, right? Keep stable. We talk about this actually in our 10x mindset as well. Okay, our 10x growth actually requires you to drop out, let go, remove, delete, eliminate 80% of what you're currently doing. Okay, by your own intent consciously, and only keep the best 20%, and move it forward. Most people don't do this, so they are on a 2x trajectory curve, a linear growth. But if you really want to become like continuously growth to the next level, 10x, then you have to try new things. You have to keep new approaches, right? And experiences and work with new people, right? That's the only way that you can actually, break and leverage yourself, elevate yourself into new frontiers. and become the better version of yourself in a sense. And I think this is becoming evident, although it could be painful to some people, because if you still stay the same, right? If you just keep not learning, not changing, then on the surface, it might be safe. Okay, because you are not risking anything, you are not doing anything quote unquote dangerous or risky. However, in the long term, that actually may be the dangerous thing, the most dangerous thing you can do. Because it's possible, right? Even if you, for example, have a quote unquote stable job somewhere, it's very possible that a new technology or a shifting environment, your job can be lost, like suddenly, okay, without you even realizing how you got your job lost, right? That is just going to, I think, maybe happen more frequently on a faster pace, right? So not trying things, not learning things, actually, not taking risk, actually is the riskiest thing a person can do. I think Mark mentioned this for companies, right? But I don't think it's just for companies. It's the same for individuals as well. Okay. All right. So for today's first question, I'd like you to answer, what is the gap, okay, or unmet needs do you see? And how many years do you think, that's worth investing to solve them? Okay. So basically, this will be, is the question clear? Just like, Mark saw there was a gap between people's want for knowing their classmates and friends' information versus what's available out there, right? He saw there's a gap, there was a gap. And he tried to fulfill that with, a solution, which became Facebook, right? And so I guess the first question is, what's the gap unmet needs do you see? And how many years do you think it's worth investing on your end to solve them? Okay, all right. So I'll give everybody, I think, 1 minute to answer this question. Okay, so just spend 1 minute to jot down whatever, ideas, thoughts you might have about this. Okay, all right, let's start.
I can ask a question about
Yeah,
that.
sure. All right. Okay, what was your question, Sahar?
The question that's on my mind right now is, what if I start now and lose money? Perhaps I can wait and learn from others. Is that better? Or
Right,
I start
that's a great question. Okay. But okay, that's maybe write down your answers first. Okay, I'll answer that later. Okay, I'll note that. Okay, what if you lose money, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay, all right. That's a great
So
question.
I chose to wait for now.
Okay, I see. Okay, all right. So, okay, so sorry, maybe I'll answer this question first, okay, because I just like to provide a quick feedback on this. Losing money is definitely a risk, right?
Yeah.
That nobody wants to do
Risky.
that, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And also, if you know that there is a high chance that you are going to lose money, right? Then you may not want to do that, right? Okay, because it's kind of stupid, right? But there's two different angles. Okay, two different angles. The first angle is it's the correct thing to do. In fact, I encourage you, there's a book called Essentialism. Essentialism. Okay. Part of the trait of being what's called an essentialist is that you don't just do anything or jump into every opportunity or do whatever that's on your mind. Okay. You actually would explore. Well, what happens is an essentialist actually, he or she doesn't do a lot, but does do things very to the point and usually very critical actions. Okay. But part of that is you actually explore lots and lots of options and you actually evaluate a lot of options before you actually make a move or a strike. Okay, so that's actually part of the trade-off being an essentialist and also leveraging the 80-20 rule. Okay, because most of the things are noise. You want to work on the signal, right? On things that truly matter. So this is one angle. Okay, if you're being an essentialist, okay, if you are being essential, meaning that it's not that you don't spend money, but you're actually, you want to look at all the options or evaluate the options before you make a move. Okay. And in that spirit, it's good. Okay, that's actually a prudent approach, practice, behavior. Okay. But on the other hand, there's also, okay, you also see people like Tony Robbins. Okay. He would actually tell you just to act. Okay, take massive action. Okay. You want to take massive actions, a lot of actions. Okay.
Yeah.
And just keep trying, right? And make
Yeah.
small bets, make, small experiments. Okay. And this is also very valid, very true advice. Okay. Because the reason being, a lot of times, things are just in our head. Whether it's opportunity or obstacle, actually you cannot really tell unless you try, put things into motion, test it in the real world. After you act and get feedback, then you will learn. Okay, if you don't act, you will not get feedback, you will not learn, you will not improve, and you might be living in your head. Okay, which is not the reality. Okay, a lot of things you think it's difficult or maybe not easy to succeed, actually, maybe not. Maybe it's not that difficult. Maybe you can, it's doable, right? But if you don't act, you will never know, right? Okay, so both of these are valid. Okay, so how do you kind of balance or make sense, right? I think maybe that's part of the question and also part of the confusion, right? Okay, so I don't know if you have the question, but it sounds like it's kind of conflicting, contradictory advice. However, if you combine them in such a way, for example, take lots of actions, but don't spend your money.
How?
Okay, see what I'm saying? There's still a lot of things you can do, like doing market survey, doing surveys, testing things, right? Without actually spend money on it. There's a lot of things you can do without spending money in order to test out your hypothesis. Okay, that's one thing. Okay. In fact, one of the things you can be doing is to fundraise, even to raise money. Okay, ask for pre-orders, ask people to pay for it first, right? Or maybe ask people to invest, right? That's also an action, an effort that you can do without spending money. Okay, you're just using your time to trade. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, do take a lot of actions, small steps, small attempts. But if money is a concern, okay, you can obviously conserve that. You don't have to waste that, okay?
Yeah.
And because money is a valuable resource, right?
Right.
And also the other thing is nowadays there are a lot of free tools. And in fact, you can also barter with other people. Okay, you can barter. Do you know barter? Barter is, you have something, I have something, we trade, right? Barter is the oldest way people trade. If you have something valuable, you can maybe get other people, exchange for other people's service or goods by something you have. This way, you don't have to spend any money, but you can still get something you want. Okay.
I need to know more about this idea.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. Like, there is a influencer called Ellen Ling. She's a 2XX award funnel marketer. She has made $10 million by herself alone, single person. Okay, doing online course sales. Okay, on ClickFunnels. Okay, she actually received what's called the 2XX award from Russell Brunson, the founder of ClickFunnels. Okay, but because of that, what happened was, and she recently asked me to coach her clients, okay, on mindset, okay? And I told her my hourly rate is $500 per hour. Okay, that's how much I charge for my consulting clients, okay? And, it's a money, maybe she may not want to pay for, okay? At least maybe not to, because it's still validated. But then I just ask her, because she's offering funnel marketing course. Her course is also costing $500 per month to subscribe. So I simply ask her, why don't you give me your course and I'll give you my coaching? So we did a trade. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, something like this. Okay, try to be creative. Okay, all right. So, but I do want to remind you. Okay, sometimes investing money is essential. Okay, because money is a form of commitment. And a lot of the upgrades, I can share this personally, like the things you guys are learning now, the 10X mindset, the entrepreneurship, obviously YC is the free stuff, but some of the coaching I got from Dr. Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan, they cost money. I personally have spent over $50,000 on my coaching and training alone so far. Okay. And actually this year, it's probably going to be more. I mean, it's a decision now that I will join Strategic Coach for the 3rd year, okay, this year. And that is actually, I think that's going to be an investment. I don't say it's a cost, it's an investment of $15,000. Okay, so you guys have to understand the things I'm sharing with you guys is something that otherwise you might have to spend a lot of money to acquire. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so don't treat this lightly. Okay, don't treat this lightly. I'm doing this for my purpose. I do have a specific purpose that I want to achieve, which is to actually identify, find, and coach unicorn founders. Okay, which is why I'm doing this. Okay, but don't treat this lightly because it's free, because it's otherwise not. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Sahar, does that answer your question? And because I'm paying a lot of money, so you can, I'm pretty sure, right? You can probably imagine, I will treat every second I spend, right, on strategic coach workshop, like I will be highly driven and focused, right? Because for example, this year, I'll be paying $15,000 just to attend for 1 year, right? Okay. So, and there's only actually 4 workshops. So you can calculate, it's like something like $4,000 per workshop, just for a single day. Okay, Sahar.
Okay.
Right? That's the amount of investment I'm willing to make on myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to share is when the time comes, don't hesitate to invest. Okay. And if you are investing into something you believe in, something to improve yourself, then it's never a waste. There's no loss. Okay, this is another Dan Sullivan concept, very important. There's no cost, especially when you're investing into people. It's always an investment. Always. Okay, whether you're investing into yourself or onto somebody else, that is always an investment.
Right.
Okay. All right. I hope this helps. That's a great question, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So I guess, yeah, Rohini, welcome to join. Our first question is, okay, because we shared Mark Zuckerberg's, Facebook story, and he identified the gaps between, what people were looking for versus what was available. There's a gap. There was a gap. So he built Facebook, right? So the first question is, what gap or unmet needs do you see? And how many years do you think are worth investing to solve the problem, okay, by yourself, okay? Is it a 5-year problem? Is it a 10-year problem? Or is it a 20-year problem? Okay, I'll give an example. My goal, my gap is that I see there can be more unicorn founders globally, even in places that are, rural or, places like Southeast Asia, Obviously, India is blooming, but I'm sure there are many places in India, in China, or even in Africa. There are aspiring, talented individuals that could become entrepreneurs, but they don't have the opportunities. So this is something I'd like to spread, right? And I think this is a 20-year challenge for me. I want to spend the next 20 years doing this. Okay, so that's the gap, right? So something similar, right? What gap do you see unmet needs that you personally have experienced that you're seeing? And how many years do you think it's worth spend solving them? Okay. All right. So I'll give you 60 seconds to answer this first question. Okay. All right. Let's start. Okay, 10 more seconds. Okay, all right. Okay. All right, so let's go to our next YC story, okay, which is about the company called 23andMe. Okay, so this was actually an interview to the founder, Anne, okay, Anne Wojcicki, okay. She actually, I think, went to marry the founder of Google, one of the founders, okay, and became his wife. Okay, so that's I guess that's another story. But her startup is in the in the genetic testing field. And when she started that business, it's because she already worked as a researcher, okay, in the biotech field. And she understood, how the system kind of worked and how much people are spending money to do genetic testing. And it was a lot. Okay, so when kind of she saw that there's a opportunity. If they can make genetic testing cheaper and even to individuals, right? Make it available to individuals, then there's a huge potential for people to identify, for example, genetic disease and maybe to do some preventions, right? To enhance their health. Okay, and using data to enhance health, that's another thing. Leveraging data for, for health purpose, diagnostic or treatment, right? So that's actually how they started. And she also has this experience. Okay, so I guess part of it's kind of like related to the gap, we talk about with Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, but it's more about, if you're familiar with an existing system, whether it's, let's say, education system, or maybe the food production system, right? Or maybe, let's say I don't know, maybe some of you are interested in photography, right? Maybe in the photography field, right? I don't know what, right? But if you're familiar with some existing system, maybe from your family or your upbringing, then there may be an opportunity for you to explore, right? You probably understand what the issues are, what the challenges are, and potentially you can come up with a solution that might address, the problem. Okay, so I guess that's the first lesson. The second thing she shared was, you want to work with intelligent but humble people. Okay, there's a lot of smart people out there, but it's not necessarily, not all of them are easy to work with. Okay, and one of the traits may be, you do want to work with, dedicated smart people, but you also want, to work with humble people, meaning that they don't necessarily always argue or think that they're always right, right? And they're willing and open to alternative opinions and possibilities, and accept the fact that they could be wrong, like I could be wrong, right? I'd like to add a note on this, which is Ray Dalio. Okay, some of you may know him, but if not, he's the founder of Bridgewater Associates, which is one of the largest hedge funds, in the world. So Ray Dalio has written a book called Principles, and also I think the Changing New World Order. By the way, both books are highly recommended. I'm right now listening to the Principles book, the audiobook version, on a weekly basis. And Ray Dalio actually has this really painful experience, which is because he's doing, in the finance, he's doing hedging, right? Buying things and trading things to make a profit. And, I think in the 80s, in the early 80s, because basically he made a prediction. He was predicting the US dollar system will crash. Okay, and because of that, he made some investment decisions based on that. But it turned out the US system, dollar system, did not crash after the oil, there was a gasoline challenge in the early 80s. And he went opposite to what he expected. And in fact, he lost a lot of money. He even lost his employee and become a one-person company. And at one point, he was so bad, he had to borrow 4,000 US dollars from his father just to make, ends meet and continue living, right? So one of the lessons Ray Dalio took from this is that as opposed to be obnoxious and, confident that thinking that I'm always right or I'm smart, I'm right, he began to ask the question, a more humbling question of how do I know I'm right? Okay, you see, this is a very different question, right? Like most of the time, especially if we have experience, if we have some experience, we might think that, we are the expert. We know better, right? Better maybe than the other people. I think this is especially true for entrepreneur type people who are usually like more achieving and more confident, right? I mean, nothing wrong with having confidence. But if you are, arrogant to the point that, you don't really see things, right? Potential mistakes or gaps. Because one of the most dangerous thing, there's a saying called, you don't know what you don't know. Okay, you don't know what you don't know. This is something actually, I think, one of the most dangerous mistakes. Because of our ignorance, we may not do certain things, or we may do or not doing certain things. But that's actually the most dangerous. So ask yourself, like, how do I know I'm right? Okay, maybe it's a better question than trying to convince other people. Then being humble yourself, but also work with humble people. Okay, so I think that's the second thing Anne was sharing. And the third was that perseverance. Okay, so the company became highly successful within a short time. But if you really look at their history, she started the work in biotech, learning and knowing the field and learning about its problem and coming up with solutions. That probably took more than 10 years. Okay, enough. Okay, so don't believe, like overnight success that, without effort. I can pretty much guarantee you all the quote unquote overnight success you see are probably 10 years in the making. Okay, there's usually a lot of effort, sweat and even blood and tears that went into it that people don't see it. Okay, because usually we see on the media, on the news, it's the results, it's the fruits that has bear, through labor. But usually there's a long process before that. So I guess that's, one example. And how can you actually build towards something for 10 years? That requires a certain thinking and mindset. One of the ways to do this is if you can think ahead, right? Try to envision what the future is like 2 or 5 years from now, even 10 years from now, right? If you can like foresee what the future might look like and then track reverse engineer to today in terms of what should you do, what should you learn, what should they invest, right? If you can imagine, right? I think Dan also talks about this, which is if you can foresee what the world is going to be like in 10 or 20 years, right? Obviously, it's going to be faster, cheaper, easier, right? And better, bigger for a lot of things, right? More powerful. And if you can see what's going to happen by that time, then you can ask yourself, what should I do today in order to be fully prepared and embrace for that future, right? So I'll give one example. My personal example is when I was doing my master's degree, 15 years ago, I was asking myself what the future might look like. Actually almost 20 years ago, what the future would look like, in 20, 30 years. My answer back then was VR and AI. Okay. And so I actually became a virtual world researcher trying to build what's, today we know it as the metaverse. Okay, VR hasn't really happened mainstream yet, but AI definitely has. Okay, and because of that, I was able to invest early into certain field and knowledge. And right now, what I'm seeing is in the future, there will be 3-person unicorns. Okay, because of exponential tech, the unicorns will have smaller number of people and leveraging, massively automation, robotics, and AI, right? So if the future, there will be many 3-person unicorns, then what can we do today to try to learn and to move towards that, right? That's the kind of assumption and also investment I'm doing with Ascender, right? 3-person unicorn, 1,000 of them might sound crazy or even impossible to probably a lot of people. But if you really, right, try to look 10 years, even 20 years ahead into the future, then maybe it will not be that unusual, right? Because that obviously will be a very different world than the world we currently are in. Okay, make sense? So if that makes sense, then our second question today is, which existing systems problems or gaps do you have a unique insight and understanding? Okay, think about a system that may be through school or through work or through upbringing, maybe your family education, that you have intimate knowledge about. Okay, and so what are some of its problem or gaps that you actually have a unique insight and understanding that nobody else has, or very few people understand? Okay, so 1 minute on this. Okay, let's start. Okay, 10 more seconds. And also, what are some problems, that you're aware of? Okay, all right. Okay, hope you all got some ideas. Okay. By the way, these questions, can serve as great foundations for your own project or entrepreneur journey. Okay. All right. So the third YC story is actually YC itself. Okay. So the interview was about Jessica Livingston, the co-founder of Y Combinator. She actually also married the founder of Y Combinator, Paul Graham. Okay, so become husband and wife team. But they were actually work partners before becoming life partners. So one of the things she said was from her observation of a lot of, founders, the best founders, they always focus on just two things, users and product. Okay, so this actually is YC's motto and main teaching, is you should be spending 80-90% of your time either talking to your users to learn your feedback, their pain, and also the other is improving your product. Okay, just these two, product or service. Other things, like go for socializing, networking, fundraising, publicity, giving talks. Okay. All these things, right? They actually don't necessarily contribute directly to your entrepreneurial success. Okay. Like I think I was listening to Sarah Mana today. She's basically the entrepreneurial coach and has actually coached some unicorns to become unicorn, actually. She mentioned that there are unicorns, real unicorns and fake unicorns. So the real unicorns are doing real business with very solid, IPO grade kind of business that they have revenues, real profit, and solid business model. There are other unicorns that become unicorns simply because they got a lot of investment, a lot of cash, at ridiculous ratio. So they have $1 billion valuation. But these are fake unicorns in the sense that they don't necessarily have a very solid business foundation or solving a problem with a real solution. Okay, so likely they will become what's called unicorps, okay, dead bodies very quickly. Okay, so I think that's coinciding to, the focus. If you focus on user and products, you will actually build a real product that is helping and serving your clients and audience. Okay, but if you're not doing actual user study and product development, and just on the other things, right? Whatever the other things might be, then maybe you're just distracting yourself. Okay. And successful founders, they usually iterate many, many times. Okay, like basically just lots of iterations. Okay, lots and lots of feedback and iterations. And Y Combinator in particular, they actually have a secret, which is, by the way, the secret is probably, according to Peter Thiel, all successful business are based on some kind of secret, which is an observation, you think it's true, the founders think it's true, but very few people actually agree with you or not practicing. Okay, so if you have certain belief like that, then that could be maybe your foundation for a great business. Okay, behind every great business, there's a secret. And YC's secret is that they were actually very founder friendly. Okay, and they believe that by becoming founder friendly, they're considerate for founder's perspective as opposed to investor, because they are also an investor. Okay, but unlike most other investors or VC out there, which are maybe from a financial perspective, YC actually wanted to help founders to succeed. Okay, they were super founder friendly. So that actually became the key to a lot of their design, how they deal with founders, how they design their structure, how they design their program. Okay, and learn from founders what's the best way to support them. Okay, so those are kind of the YC secret. All right, and I think Jessica also emphasized that perseverance, persistence is very important. Okay, I think I like to, this is a theme I'm seeing over again. And in fact, in some classic books like Think and Grow Rich, he also talk about, when you actually have a definite purpose and you just have, you just keep pushing until the door opens. Like Henry Ford, right? He actually built the Model T despite his engineers told him it was impossible. Okay, it will be too costly. It wasn't, it wasn't something that's buildable. But Henry Ford just keep asking his engineer, go back, design, test, try, until they actually developed a good enough engine to power the first, modern cars, Model T. Okay, so I think you can see this trait in a lot of the successful entrepreneurs. But if you really distill this, if you really look at this, there's nothing really secret about this. Because if you can pursue a goal, right, continuously, right, just keep doing, and improving a little bit each time, solving a little bit problem each time, over time, it will compound. Necessarily, it will break through. You will have a breakthrough to make your product or service good enough to a certain point, right, that people are willing to pay for it, or, basically make a profit for it, right, at some point. And that's when you become quote unquote successful, right? So if you will, there's maybe that's one secret, but maybe that's not really secret at all, because it's just logic. Okay. If you can continuously improving something long enough, but obviously, how can you sustain long enough? That's the question. That's a mindset question. That's that's what we're teaching here, right? For example, look at the gain, not the gap, right? And doing things with tiny baby steps. Don't overshoot things, but accumulating bits and bits of progress, right? That's how you actually can accumulate. All right. So today's third question is, what secret do you believe to be true, even if few people around you actually agree? Okay. All right. So I'll give you 1 minute to answer this. Okay, let's start. All right, 10 more seconds. Okay, all right. So yeah, I think due to time, today's mindset, I think I just will refer you guys to the weekly video, okay? But we do have the topic of how do you heal your trauma, okay? Part of that relates to how you can reframe your past, okay? So this is, I think, something something that would be really helpful, so highly encourage you. I think that was on the Monday video. You can go back and look at. Okay. And the other key concept is when you're going 10x, you want to eliminate even the seemingly good opportunities. Good is the enemy of great. Okay, if you want to become great, you actually have to eliminate even the quote unquote good opportunities. And the reason is, again, very simple. Because if you're really aiming for 10x growth, very few things will remain in your future life, right? Because it's a 10x life, 10x future, 10x version. Probably, just 10 or 20% are the things you will keep. 80% has to be gone. Okay, 80%, just think about that. 80% of what you're currently doing, interacting, right? The things, the people, actually will no longer be there when you're at your 10x version future self, right? And that is just the reality of 10x growth. So if you cannot let go, okay, even the quote unquote good opportunities, then you will not have the space, the time, the energy, or the money to actually 10x and focus on your 10x opportunities, right? So, be disciplined about having a high filter, which is your 10x goal, and then let go, remove pretty much everything else. Okay, so I think that's the takeaway. All right. All right, so we'll do some shares. Okay. Anyone would like to share your answers for today's coaching question? And yeah, okay. And if you have any insights or any questions to ask, also feel free. All right. Okay, so yeah, who would like to volunteer? And remember, this will be a great opportunity for you to get feedback. Okay, not on your answers, but also on any potential question challenge you may have, and to help you to break over to your next level. All right, Vaishali, you like to share? I see you have
Yes,
unmuted. Yeah, go ahead, go
yes.
ahead. Yeah.
So your first question was that what is the gap I see and how will I solve it? So the gap, so I'll say is in me is the lack of confidence. I find myself sometimes that I'm lacking of the correct confidence which I should show at that time. As an example, I'll definitely talk about my Instagram account where it is necessary. If you want to share your insights or if you want to tell anyone anything, that too modes like social media, you should definitely share with your own thoughts, with your own face. So right now, I think I'm not confident enough to share it with myself through my own face and through my own recorded videos. So I think this is the thing right now I'm facing, and how will I solve it is gradually posting day by day, and then slowly I'll post my own recorded videos too. And then the second question you asked was gap in a system. You think whether it is education, corporate, and like that. So the very first gap I'll talk about education. I'm not sure about any other country in the world, but in India specifically, I have seen that there is a definitely big gap in education system where students are required to study any rigorous or particular subject in order to pass that particular class. As an example, if a student has interest in cricket or has interest in any other background, still he has to focus. I mean, teachers, I have seen even teachers to stop him from that interest and tell him to focus on the college studies or school studies in which he has no interest if he wants to pass his college or school. So this is the thing which I have seen that there are many students in India who are not able to do something good in which they have interest into because of the education system. And the second gap I'll talk about is in corporate system. I mean corporate sector where I have worked, I have seen that there was a gap in because of the remote work. I mean, there is a new culture of remote work due after the corona time. So I saw that there were some seniors or some juniors as well who were misusing it, or they were. I mean, in short, I'll say that there is a lack of leadership skills in corporate sector, which is needed to be filled up as soon as possible if a company needs to grow. And then the third question, you say that what secret do you believe to be true and other things that it is wrong. So I'll say that working on ourselves. I mean, from my personal experience, I say that I read books. I want to learn about philosophy. I want to learn about myself, and I do read religious books. So I have seen people personally who say that this is nothing. Why are you working on yourself? This is not make you earn money. I mean, learn something which will give you money. Why are you learning it? So this is something which I feel very disgusting in India. That people think that if you earn money, only then you will be settled and you will be happy in life. Otherwise, if you think that you are working on yourself and you are taking any kind of holiday or you want to quit your job just for your own self, which means you are doing wrong. So this was, I think, that is something which is a secret and people believe it to be untrue.
Wow, fantastic. Wow, Rashella, thanks so much for sharing. Okay, I think there's a lot of truth and wisdom in what you just shared. Okay. Any questions, feedback for Rashali? Okay, remember, we are having what's called a mastermind session, which is more brains together can actually help become a bigger brain. Okay, so any questions or feedback to each other will actually help and facilitate this process. Okay, so is there any feedback or questions to Vaishali? Okay, again, don't be shy. If you have feedback, you can also type in the chat if you like, you know. Okay, all right. So, well, I'll take the opportunity. Okay, but I mean, do share your feedback. Okay, don't be shy. But Vaishali, I think I sense there was power in what you were sharing when you were describing the gap in the education system and also the cooperation. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think those are very personal experience and you have a deep feeling. I can sense that about these problems. And also about the secret, I definitely would agree with you. A lot of people are quote unquote practical, realistic, okay? And they will challenge if you are not doing things directly in terms of earning money or, towards making money. However, I fully agree with you. Actually, some of the best valuable stuff may not, it actually comes from philosophy, okay, from value system. So I guess my first feedback is don't extinguish. Okay, this is very valuable stuff that you have an independent thought and also spirit, observation, right, to the gap. These will be good grounds for you to actually discover problems to solve, to address, right? And become perhaps a business, and and become an entrepreneur. Okay, literally. Okay. I mean, if you can somehow address the gap, right? Fill up the missing space and, demonstrate that, there's a better way to learn, to educate, there's a better way to do work, to have leadership, right? Especially with the remote culture, right? Then, that's definitely, I think a very fertile space. Okay. So I guess that's my first feedback. And second feedback is how you can actually, discover that, right? To do that. And I don't know if you have any concrete ideas now. Okay, do you? Or maybe still looking for one?
So what I think is currently I'm thinking to posting on Instagram and gradually posting on YouTube also, which will give me a ground to meet with new people. And as soon as my subscribers will increase, I think then there will be a podcast and then small startup kind of thing. But it will still take some time.
I see. Okay, good. All right, okay. So basically, maybe some feedback regarding this. Okay. If you are remember the 4Cs framework, okay, Dan Sullivan talks about there are 4 stages. It's the first commitment, and then courage, okay, and the third is capability. The fourth is confidence. Okay, so your confidence doesn't come until you actually get good at certain things, not the other way around. Okay, so don't wait. I myself have done, like posting and, like social medias this in the past. And, I wouldn't say I'm yet super successful in terms of this, but obviously I do have certain content that people look at. But in terms of content production, in terms of posting, I think there were some tricks I used. Okay, so for example, one of the things is simply just be prolific. Okay, especially maybe in the early stage. I think this is from Russell Brunson. He said that if you can continually create content for a year, 365 days, he guarantee you your life will change, your income will double, all the good things will come. And in fact, the first 30, 40 to 60 posts that you make, it's not about your audience. Okay, it's not about creating good content. It's actually about finding your voice, as he calls it. Okay, you're simply trying to produce, to output in order to find what is your voice. Okay, make sense? So I would suggest, again, starting with something really, really small, tiny habits, and just make it into the habit. if there's certain concern of any aspect, then try to see how can reduce that to even the smallest amount of work you can do. And then obviously there are other things. You can maybe leverage AI to help. Okay. And definitely another idea is Hunahao. Okay. When we hesitate to do certain things, when we're afraid of to do certain things, it's usually because of our limited capability and confident, skills, capability and experience. This is exactly, and we might procrastinate, we might, push back, right? We might not do this. But this is exactly the time for who, not how. Okay, try not to solve this by yourself, but try to think of, is there someone who can help you? Maybe a friend, maybe a mentor, maybe an accountability buddy that can help you to actually, reach over to become, a prolific and successful Instagram, influencer or posts, right? Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yes.
Okay, so I think maybe there's something you can think. And one way is to actually talk to, converse with people who are already successful in doing this. Do you have anyone around you that's already doing successful in Instagram and social media?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, someone you personally know?
Not personally, but only through social media.
Okay, I mean, is this someone like a friend that you can talk to directly?
Not directly in the sense like my friends are still struggling with the same domain, but I know people, not as a friend, but only through Instagram.
I see. Okay, all right. Then one way is to potentially reach out to them and have a conversation, right? Maybe have a chat or some exchange to learn and to consult them, right? Or be of service to them. Okay, that's probably
Okay.
one of the best way to learn quickly. I do apologize that, I haven't really introduced you guys to Vikas. He's an entrepreneur coach. He also organized, I think, his social media. Okay. I think maybe by connecting with Vikas, you might be able to jump and learn a thing or two from him because he's obviously an influencer and in India as well. Okay, you know who I'm talking about, right? The entrepreneur coach.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I think yeah, I think I'll start to introduce you guys. Okay. Obviously, we will promote a center for Q2 now as well. So I think it's a good timing, okay, for this. All right. So I hope that was helpful. Okay, Vishali, is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I hope you, and for those of you, okay, so maybe we're at time, okay, but I like to ask, is there anyone who would like to share their answers as well? Okay, this will be our last coaching call, actually. So Sabashini, would you like to share your answers? I've seen you call many times, but haven't heard you speak. Okay, or maybe Yashivi. Yashivi, is that how I pronounce your name? Yashivi. Would you like to share your answers to the question? Yashivi? Or if you have any question you want to ask, also feel free. Yeah, Yashivi Shah, is that your name? Okay, all right. So it's fine. Okay, if you have questions, feel free to share in the WhatsApp. Okay. So I think that's wrap up. Okay, by doing this, okay, on Wei. Okay, cannot speak. All right. Maybe you can type. But I'd like everybody to spend 1 minute to write down what's your biggest takeaway and learning today. Okay, and what's one action moving forward that you want to make? Okay, so let's start. 1 minute. I share this in the chat room, the feedback form. All right, so biggest takeaway and next action. All right, let's start. All right, 10 more seconds. All right, okay. So just would like to ask for some quick share. What has been your biggest takeaway and next action? Okay, anyone volunteer? Okay, maybe Vaishali, would you like to share? What's your biggest takeaway and and your action forward?
So my biggest takeaway, I'll talk about 2 points. The first is that you said that start small,
Mhm.
and the second thing I mean in every class I learn is a leadership skill which I learn from you in every other class. I mean I can clearly see the difference in between a boss and a leader just because of you. The way you used to teach all of us is something which I always learn, and my lesson will be the same, I think.
Okay, all right. So what's your next action? Your next action?
So my next action will be definitely working on myself more and not on other people, and gradually posting on Instagram also to work on my confidence level.
Okay, sure. All right, great, excellent. Okay. Remember, there's the courage phase. Okay. So it's you have to act towards courage, not the other way around, and act toward confidence, not the other way around. Okay, all right. All right. So maybe we can have one more share of the summary. I mean the learning and the action. Okay, so anyone? Yashivi, would you like to share? Maybe you can type text. So Sahar, maybe you can share what's your biggest learning today and what's your action forward? Sahar, would you like to share? You're muted. Okay. All right. So Sabashini or Yashivi? Okay. All right. So well, if you have anything that you'd like to share, you can also share it in the WhatsApp. Okay, in the WhatsApp. So just a quick announcement. We will actually have our demo day, okay, next week. So the demo day will be very simply 15 minutes for each presenter. Okay, it's 5 minutes presentation plus 10 minutes QA. Okay, and we'll see if we can have maybe 3 to 4 presenters. Okay, and it will be 1 hour long. And we will be inviting actually investors to come to listen to, and provide feedback for the demo day. And I think afterwards, including the demo day, we, probably will be handling out, now probably, we have allocated some grants, $500 each, okay, and for people to apply. Okay, so part of the criteria is you have to be in good standing with the coaching. One is finish all the coaching course materials, that we can see on the back end. And also, we want you to basically to submit a YC application, okay, and show proof of that. Okay. And obviously your presentation at the demo day, okay, will also be, wanted. Okay, those will be the 3 main things, criteria for getting the grant. All right, and I guess that's it. Okay, so it will be, I think, 5:30, the same coaching time. Okay, for our demo day. All right, so I look forward to all of you, and congrats on finishing. Okay, this is our week 10, our week 10, Create Unicorn. Okay, so thanks, and I guess I'll see you next week. All right, okay, so thanks and
Thank
take
you.
care. All right, yeah, take care, yeah,
Bye.
bye-bye, yeah, bye,
Thank you, sir.
yeah, bye-bye.